I want to ask you a question that most people in your church have never been asked directly. How much do you think the average Christian family your age has saved for retirement? Not a guess about the wealthiest family in your congregation. Not the finance director or the business owner in the third row. The average, the typical family sitting 2 rows in front of you every Sunday. The one with 2 working adults, a mortgage, a couple of kids, and what appears from the outside to be a reasonably stable financial life. What number is in their retirement account right now? Most people I ask this question to guess somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000 for a family in their 40s. Some guess higher. They assume that other people, particularly other church-going, responsible, values-driven people, are further along than they probably are. Here is the actual number. The median retirement savings for an American household aged 35 to 44 is $45,000. Not $150,000, not $300,000, $45,000. And that is for the households that have any retirement savings at all, because 25% of American adults have exactly $0 saved for retirement. 1 in 4. $0. The family 2 rows in front of you may be in significantly more financial difficulty than their Sunday morning presentation suggests. And so might you, not because you have been irresponsible, but because the gap between where most Christian families actually are and where they need to be is much larger than anyone is talking about from the pulpit. Today we are looking at the real numbers, the actual financial benchmarks for Christian households in 2026, because you cannot close a gap you cannot see. Let me introduce you to the Thompson family. David and Angela Thompson are both 41 years old. They have been married for 14 years. They attend church faithfully, tithe consistently, own a modest home, and have 2 children aged 11 and 8. By every visible measure, they are a stable, responsible Christian family. Here is their actual financial picture, built from the median data for American households at their income and age level. Retirement savings, $52,000 combined. Their mortgage balance, $187,000 with 18 years remaining. Consumer debt, $11,400 across 2 credit cards and a car loan. Emergency fund, $1,800. At monthly surplus, after all expenses and giving, approximately $340. On paper, the Thompsons are doing better than half of American households their age. They have retirement savings, 25% of their peers have none. They own a home. They tithe. They are, by median standards, financially stable. But here is what those numbers actually mean for their future. At their current savings rate, David and Angela will retire with approximately $180,000 in retirement savings. Using the standard 4% withdrawal rule, that $180,000 generates $7,200 per year, $600 per month to supplement Social Security. Their current monthly expenses are $4,800. The gap between what they will have and what they will need is approximately $3,500 per month in retirement, every month, for the rest of their lives. The Thompsons are not failing. They are the median, and the median is in serious financial difficulty that most of them will not discover until it is too late to fully correct it. That is not a comfortable truth, but it is a necessary one, and it is the reason this video exists. In this video, I am going to show you 4 things. The real financial benchmarks, what the data actually shows about where Christian families are at each major life stage. The biblical benchmarks, the standards Scripture describes that go beyond the financial averages, the gap between the two, because it is larger than most people expect and smaller than most people fear, once the path to closing it is clear. And the specific steps the Thompsons, and every family at their financial position, can take right now to change the trajectory. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly where you stand compared to the real benchmarks, and exactly what that means for the action you need to take. The numbers are hard. Knowing them anyway is the beginning of changing them. The financial benchmarks are sobering. But the biblical benchmarks, the standards that Scripture describes for faithful stewardship at each life stage, are the ones that matter most. And most Christian families have never heard them. The real numbers. Let me give you the actual financial benchmarks for American households, broken down by age, because the gap between what people assume and what the data shows is significant. These numbers come from Federal Reserve research on household finances. They represent median values, meaning half of households have more and half have less. Under 35, median retirement savings, $18,880. Median net worth, $39,000. Percentage with zero retirement savings, approximately 40%. Average consumer debt outside of student loans and mortgage, $8,700. If you are under 35 and you have any retirement savings at all, even $5,000, you are already ahead of a significant portion of your peers. The challenge at this age is not catching up. It is starting with enough consistency that compound growth has decades to work. Ages 35 to 44. Median retirement savings, $45,000. Median net worth, $91,000. Average consumer debt, $12,400. This is the Thompson family's cohort. The median is better than nothing and worse than needed. A household that needs $1.5 million at retirement, a reasonable estimate for a couple wanting $60,000 per year in retirement income alongside Social Security, needs to be on track to reach that. At $45,000 saved at age 40 with a $1,500 monthly contribution, growing at 8% annually, they reach approximately $1.3 million by 65. Close, but requiring sustained discipline over 25 years. Ages 45 to 54. Median retirement savings, $115,000. Median net worth, $168,000. Consumer debt, $14,200. This is the decade where the compound growth of earlier decisions becomes visible, for better or worse. Those who started early are pulling significantly ahead of the median. Those who delayed are beginning to feel genuine urgency. Ages 55 to 64. Median retirement savings, $185,000. Median net worth, $212,000. This is the final major accumulation decade. The households arriving here with $185,000 face a retirement income gap that cannot be fully closed by the time they stop working. The pattern across every age cohort is the same. The median is insufficient. The majority of American households, Christian and non-Christian, are heading toward a retirement that will require them to significantly reduce their lifestyle, depend on family members, or continue working far longer than they planned. And Christian households, despite giving more generously than their peers, are not meaningfully ahead on these numbers. The generosity is real. The savings gap is real. Both facts are true simultaneously. The financial benchmarks show where most families are, but the biblical benchmarks show where faithful stewardship leads, and the gap between the two reveals something important about what the church has been teaching and what it has been leaving out. The biblical benchmark scripture does not give us specific retirement savings targets in dollar amounts, but it gives us clear principles, and those principles, applied to a modern income and a modern financial system, produce specific and achievable benchmarks. The Benjamin Franklin benchmark. Age 30. 1 times your annual salary saved. Proverbs 13:11. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. Little by little, starting early, consistently. The person who saves diligently from their first paycheck and reaches their 30th birthday with 1 full year of salary saved has done exactly what Proverbs describes. They have gathered little by little, and the result is meaningful. At a $55,000 income, this means $55,000 saved by age 30. The median for under 35 households is $18,880. The gap is significant, and it is primarily explained by the absence of the little-by-little habit in the years between 22 and 30. The Joseph benchmark, age 40, 3 times your annual salary saved. Joseph stored grain for 7 years before the famine. He did not store a little, he stored enough to sustain not just Egypt but surrounding nations through a 7-year crisis. Applied to a household at 40, 3 times annual salary and retirement savings represents a genuine reserve, not a minimum survival fund, but the kind of provision that absorbs disruption without catastrophe. At $65,000 income, This means $195,000 saved. The median for 35 to 44 households is $45,000. The gap at this stage is large, and the urgency is real. The Proverbs 31 benchmark. Age 50. 6 times your annual salary saved. The Proverbs 31 woman was financially active and building at every stage. By the midlife milestone, faithful stewardship of the accumulation years should have produced something substantial. 6 times annual salary at 50, at $70,000 income, that is $420,000. The median for 45 to 54 households is $115,000. Now, the gap here is the most alarming of all the benchmarks, and it is the one that produces the retirement income crisis most visibly. The David and Angela Thompson benchmark check. The Thompsons are 41. Their income is approximately $95,000 combined. The Joseph benchmark for their age and income is approximately $285,000. Their actual retirement savings, $52,000. The gap, $233,000. That gap is not a verdict on their character or their faith. It is a description of their financial position, which can be changed starting today if the right actions are taken in the right order, with sufficient urgency. The gap is real, but here is the thing about gaps. Once you know the size of the gap and the rate at which it can be closed, the urgency becomes productive rather than paralyzing. Let me show you exactly what closing the gap looks like for the Thompsons, and for you. What closing the gap actually looks like. The Thompson family has a $233,000 gap between where they are and where the biblical benchmark places them at their age. Here is what that gap looks like when you run the actual numbers on closing it. If David and Angela increase their monthly retirement contributions from whatever they are currently making to $800 per month, combined, across both their employer plans and a Roth IRA, and sustain that contribution rate for the next 24 years until David is 65, their projected retirement balance at 8% annual returns is approximately $655,000. That is not the Joseph benchmark, but it is significantly more than the $180,000 they were heading toward on their current trajectory. It generates approximately $26,200 per year under the 4% withdrawal rule, $2,183 per month. Combined with Social Security, average benefit approximately $1,800 per month each, their total monthly retirement income approaches a sustainable level. The gap closes not through a dramatic windfall but through an increase in the monthly contribution rate sustained over a long period. But there is a prerequisite. The Thompsons cannot direct $800 per month to retirement contributions while simultaneously carrying $11,400 in consumer debt at 22% interest. The debt elimination has to come first, using the priority sequence from Video 8. At their monthly surplus of $340, aggressively attacking the consumer debt takes approximately 3 years. Once the debt is gone, the $340 monthly surplus becomes significantly larger because the minimum debt payments that were consuming a portion of their income are now available for retirement contributions. This is the compounding effect of getting the order right, not just the compound growth of the investments. The compound effect of eliminating the drag before beginning the build. The Thompsons are not too far behind to catch up, but the catching up requires starting this month, not next year, not when things settle down, not when the breakthrough comes. This month. Every month of delay at their age, on their income, costs approximately $480 in eventual retirement wealth, the contribution they did not make plus the compound growth on it that will never accumulate. The path for the Thompsons is clear. Now let me show you how to identify your specific benchmark gap and the specific action that starts closing it, because your number is different from theirs, and your action needs to match your actual position. Your benchmark gap. Here is how to calculate your benchmark gap in the next 10 minutes. Step 1. Find your current age and look up the benchmark for your cohort. Under 35. Target 1 times your annual income saved. Ages 35 to 44. Target 3 times your annual income saved. Ages 45 to 54. Target 6 times your annual income saved. Ages 55 to 64. Target 8 times your annual income saved. Step 2. Add up your actual retirement savings across all accounts: employer plan, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, any other investment account specifically designated for retirement. Step 3. Subtract your actual savings from your benchmark target. The result is your gap. Write the gap number down. Do not judge it. Do not compare it to anyone else's number. Simply know it. That number is the distance between where faithful stewardship has brought you so far and where it needs to take you. Step 4. Calculate the monthly contribution required to close that gap by retirement. This requires one additional piece of information: your approximate retirement age. For most people, 65 is the planning benchmark. The formula is not complicated. At 8% annual returns, money doubles approximately every 9 years. If you are 35 with a $50,000 gap and 30 years until retirement, that $50,000 gap closes with a smaller monthly contribution than if you are 55 with a $200,000 gap and 10 years until retirement. An online retirement calculator, every major brokerage provides one free of charge, will give you the specific monthly contribution number in under 5 minutes. That number is not what you need to start with. It is what you are building toward. Start with whatever you can genuinely sustain today. Any amount above zero, invested consistently, produces compound growth that a zero contribution never does. The right amount is the one you actually maintain, not the aspirational one you commit to in January and abandon by March. 3 actions. Your benchmark gap. This week. Action 1. Calculate your gap today. Gather every retirement account statement you have. Add the balances. Calculate your benchmark target using your age and income. Write down the gap. This calculation, which takes less than 30 minutes, gives you the most important piece of financial self-knowledge you can have: the specific distance between where you are and where faithful stewardship leads. Action 2. If your gap is large and you are under 45, time is your most valuable asset. A 35-year-old with a $100,000 gap has 25 years of compound growth available to close it. At $500 per month contributed at 8% returns over 25 years, the $500 monthly contribution alone produces approximately $475,000. The gap closes not through heroic sacrifice, but through consistent, sustained contributions started now rather than later. Open or maximize your Roth IRA this week. The 2026 contribution limit is $7,000. If you cannot contribute $7,000 this year, contribute whatever you can: $500, $1,000, $2,000. Every dollar invested at your age has decades of compound growth ahead of it. Start this week. Action 3. If your gap is large and you are over 45, urgency is appropriate. The compound growth window is shorter, but it is not closed. A 50-year-old with a $150,000 gap and 15 years until retirement who contributes $1,500 per month at 8% returns adds approximately $520,000 to their retirement balance. The gap closes, but it requires significantly higher monthly contributions than it would have required at 35. This is also the age at which the contribution catch-up provision becomes available. In 2026, Americans aged 50 and over can contribute an additional $1,000 per year to a Roth IRA and an additional $7,500 to an employer plan above the standard limits. These catch-up provisions exist precisely because many people reach 50 with a gap. Use them. For the Thompsons specifically, eliminate the consumer debt on the aggressive timeline from Video 8. As each debt is eliminated, redirect that monthly payment toward retirement contributions. In 3 years, their consumer debt payments become retirement contributions. And those contributions, sustained for 22 years, produce the retirement security their current trajectory does not. David and Angela Thompson are sitting in church right now. They look stable. They look responsible, they tithe and serve and show up, and they have a $233,000 gap between where they are and where faithful stewardship of their income could have taken them. They are not failures. They are the median. They are the entirely predictable product of a church culture that taught them how to give and never taught them how to build. That taught them the offering and skipped the order. That spoke about God's provision every Sunday and never once showed them how to steward the provision already in their hands. The gap is real, and it is not too late to close it, not all of it. Perhaps not even most of it, depending on how long the delay has already been. But enough of it to arrive at retirement with genuine security, rather than the quiet terror that awaits the median household when the paychecks stop and the savings run out in year 12. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Proverbs 21:20. The Thompsons can still be the ones who stored up. The decision to start, made this month, is worth more than any amount of regret over the years that passed without the decision. Compound growth rewards starting. It does not reward waiting for the perfect moment. You now know your benchmark. You know your gap. You know the monthly contribution that starts closing it. And you have the priority sequence from previous videos that ensures every dollar you direct toward retirement is not being simultaneously undermined by consumer debt working against it. The numbers are hard. Knowing them is harder than not knowing them. Acting on them is harder than knowing them. But the family that arrives at retirement with genuine financial security, the one that looks back on this video as the moment the trajectory changed, is the family that chose the hard thing today over the comfortable thing that produces nothing. Calculate your gap today. The number is just a number. What you do with it is the story. If this video showed you something about your financial position that you needed to see, share it with someone who is also sitting in church every Sunday assuming the people around them have it figured out. Most of them do not. And knowing that might be the permission they needed to finally start. Drop a comment and tell me, what age are you, and what does your benchmark gap look like? You do not have to share the exact number. Just tell me where you are in the journey. I read every single comment and every answer shapes what I make next. The numbers are hard. Knowing them is the beginning of changing them. Calculate your gap today.